Thanks to our Patreon members for helping to make this episode possible, and we're now available on all the major podcasting platforms. You can find more information at the links below. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Late Capitalism, a survival guide. In this episode, I want to explore the logic of financialization, which is the underlying logic, I would argue, of many aspects of late capitalism, although not all of them, which we will get to in the near future. But hopefully, if you ran the experiment on trying to bypass major companies and using like credit cards or debit cards for a week or even for a couple of days, you'll see, even if it's possible, how pervasive this has become. And it's the pervasiveness matters only because the logic of this kind of capitalism is so bizarre and so counterintuitive that I think this is one of the things that is giving people this sense of dystopia, is they're surrounded by a world which is being run by rules and a logic that are not just anti-human, which is bad enough, but there's a kind of anti-humanism that actually sort of is intuitive and makes sense. So you can say dark satanic mills, but exploiting young children in mills or sending them down to coal mines or slavery, as awful as they are actually moderately intuitive, right? You might think it's offensive, and you would think that's a morally horrible thing for people to do. But we're in a world where we've lost that clarity, right? We know something is wrong. We can feel something is wrong, but we just can't track it down. And it's because this is not incidental, by the way, but it's behind all these layers of logic and practices that have become standardized that we don't recognize. And so today I want to talk about what that logic is, how it's come to be so pervasive, and what impact it has on us, and then how possible philosophical responses, hence the survival guide part of this. So what do I mean when I say the logic of late capitalism? And let me give you a couple of examples, even though we'll all be familiar with this. I think it's just I'll give you one that's personal to me, one that's in the news now, and one that I think sort of gives an overview of that. So we'll start with three examples. And my first one was when I first got a cell phone, because I held out for getting a cell phone until 2017. So I did not have a cell. I know this sounds like this is one reason I'm very sensitive to all of this, is because I held out as long as I could from this world. But I was finally, forced. It became increasingly awkward and difficult to do the things I wanted to do without a cell phone. So I head down to my local Verizon store and I go, by the way, Verizon has functionally a monopoly in the area where I used to live. So you could go with Verizon or you could go with somebody who has no cell reception. And by the way, at my house, I had no cell reception. So there was zero cell reception at my house. And so I still had a landline for the entire time I lived there, because it was zero. It wasn't like weak or not very good. It was just non-existent. So, but I go to my local Verizon store and I'm like, okay. And they're like, hey, we'll give you this deal. Okay. Always be suspicious of the deal. This will come up again later, where we'll, quote unquote, you can take the phone and sign up for a plan, and then you pay so much a month. And if you sign up for 2 years, we give you like a $500 discount on the phone. So I'm like, well, how much is the phone? And the phone would normally be $1,000. And so I'm trying to do this math in my head, like, how much does that phone really cost? Like, what is the plan? So anyway, I finally kind of, you're busy, you're in this noisy store, you're trying to work this out. And I'm like, okay, whatever. That seems like that's okay. Like, but I should know better, but I should have done much more research before I went in. But of course, first time doing this. And so the guy's like, okay, great. Yeah, just sign up here. And I'm like, well, how much will then that end up being a month? Because I'm paying for the phone on the discount plan. And then I'm getting my Verizon full unlimited, 5G super plan to go on top of that. So what does that work out to be? And he's like, oh, well, it'll be about something like this. And I'm like, well, I'm going to need a printout of that, right? I'm going to need to know before I sign anything how much I'm going to owe a month. And he's like, oh, let me get my manager. I'm like, I just can't sign something without knowing that. Well, but we don't really know how much it's going to be. And I'm like, well, if you don't know how much it's going to be, why would I sign something for me to know how much it's going to be? So it took them a while. And I honestly don't think they were trying to rip me off because I think it was just odd that I was sort of being like, I really wanted to know what the actual number was, not an estimate, not an about, but what the actual number was. And so they printed it out for me. And I thought, okay, that's a lot, but fine. And, but you know, you're getting the phone and all of that. So great. I still have the phone, by the way. So maybe over time it's worth it. I have no idea. So then I go home, you know, it's working, learning how to use the phone, blah, blah, blah. And I get my first bill, and guess what? It's a lot more than they said it was going to be on my form. So I'm like, great. Now I have to call Verizon. And it's like, oh, I call them, and the lady's like, oh, no, that plan will be this much. And I said, well, I have my contract here. It's printed out that I signed. Here's the number, blah, blah, blah. And I read it to her, and she clicks on the machine for a while, and she goes, just a second, let me transfer you. And I'm like, okay, do. And then I get to somebody else, and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. You shouldn't have been charged that much, I see, but we'll give you a refund on your next bill. But I'm like, I overpaid this bill. It's like, da-da-da-da. And it turned out that for the entire 2 years I was on this plan, about every 3 months, I had to make a call to Verizon because I was either being overbilled or something was wrong or something like this. And so I just kind of factored this in. So notice this is a kind of tax, by the way. It's a tax on my time and my attention. And so I've looked this up, and Verizon has, of course, settled out of court many times for many hundreds of millions of dollars for this sort of opaque billing practices, overbilling, systematic misrepresentation of plan, like whatever it is you can be found guilty of. They've been found, well, they haven't been found guilty of it because they keep settling out of court, or they keep paying their government fines, which are always risibly small. Like they do these huge things, and the government fines them like $40 million. And they're like, oh, we're sorry, we'll never do that again. And every time I call, so first notice that they misbill systematically, clearly. And then, so probably like, I'm assuming they just have a plan where they go, okay, we have 50 million users or 100 million users, or how many subscribers they have. And every month we just pick 5% of them and we send them more than they're due. And so now two things can happen. Either you pay it unknowing, not aware, you don't care, whatever. And they're like, okay, that's a loss. For the user, it's a gain for them because they just got free money, basically. Like, oh, that's great. And then, or you can call them. Now, they do incur a cost when you call them because they have to have these, crazy support centers, which are now going to be all AI. So they'll be very happy about that because now they have no cost, and I'm sure they'll increase the rate at which they give you fake billing. And so then you go, okay, I don't want, refund the money. And they go, okay, we'll refund the money. So one thing is, they have the money, so they're already getting money, right? Because of course they use that money, and so the money is always good. And two, every time I would call, I noticed that they were upselling me. They're like, "Hey, you don't, what would you like our cable plan? Would you like our super plan? Would you like the family plan? Would you like?" They're always trying to sell me something, and I thought, "Oh, well, this is genius." They basically can say every month, how many calls do we want to receive from our customers to sell them new products? I just cannot, this may be incidental, but it absolutely can't be. They know this number because they're generating the number. They're like, oh, we're getting 1 million calls a month. Baby, it'd be a lot better if we got 2 million calls a month. Because we get 2 million of our customers to call a month. They're already signed up. All they have to do is say yes on the phone, and boom, we've got them for another service or another product or something like this. And it dawned on me one time because I was talking to the lady who was trying to help me fix a bill. Generally, they were very nice, by the way. No problem with the customer service people. I feel bad for them. What a horrible job, be trying to, be the cushion between these horrible worlds. And I realized, like, oh, like she goes, oh, we've got this great cable package and da-da-da. And I was like, oh, excuse me. Like, I don't want to interrupt you, but I don't have a TV. So like cable, not a thing. And she goes, what? You don't have a TV? I'm like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, but there's so many great shows on it. Which was a hilarious response. It was a human response, which made you feel good because you knew she wasn't reading for a script. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure, ma'am, there are, but I just no use selling me on that. But I realized, like, oh, so they're actually, not only are they getting the money, the extra money that people are paying that they shouldn't, but they're also getting the opportunity to upsell you. And they can generate, roughly speaking, as many of those opportunities as they want. And then one time they actually tried to upsell me as an apology. We're sorry that we overbilled you. We're going to give that money back to you on your next bill. And, if you would like, we'll give you 2 free months of whatever it was, Netflix. I don't remember what it was. And I'm like, wow. Like they're upselling me as a favor for having overbilled me. And this is the logic of late capitalism. They are not trying to provide you with cell service. This is the last thing Verizon wants to provide you with. They see cell service as a means of generating an income stream. This is why you are the product. They generate an income stream from you, and then they work to maximize that income stream while minimizing their costs. This is what they do. So the best thing I can do is provide you nothing and get a lot of money from you. The next best thing is to provide you what people call minimal viable products. We'll talk about that in a second. Thank you. A member of Patreon said that. I said, yes, this is exactly what they're doing. A minimum viable product. That's what they're looking for. MVP. And so one of the things they do, so like I noticed when they tried to upsell me as a gift for Netflix because they had overbilled me again. Think about the logic of that. It's like 3 levels of ripoff. Really, it's just crazy. But I'm sure they've struck a deal with Netflix where they say, hey, look, we get whatever 50 million calls a month or 100 million calls a quarter. That's going to be a big number. Would you like us to sell your product to our customers? And they're like, yes. So they sell their customers. They either sell them to themselves, which is to say extract more money from you internally, or they package you up and go, look, we have all these people. We know whether they have cable or not. We know, all this stuff about them. We'll sell them to different advertisers, and then we'll push our products. And then we can push your products through our customer support people onto them. And because they're waiting online and we have all this time, we have their attention. So here's your chance. And we'll tell them we're doing them a favor. And so it's just shocking. And so when I moved to France, where of course they have much stronger consumer protection laws, our monthly plan is now 37 euros, which is say $45 for 2 unlimited 5G full cell plans. So if you're in the United States, just compare your plan and know you can get unlimited, really, really super high quality 5G. And I'm sure Orange is a very large company. They're doing a lot of these same things and they're making a lot of money and they're only charging $37 a month for 2 full unlimited plans. So you do the math on what Verizon or the American ones are charging you, and you can see that it's a bit horrifying. But this is the logic of it. Give you another example. So Amazon is currently suing Perplexity, the AI people, because Perplexity's made a browser, I think I mentioned this in another lecture, that allows you to shop on Amazon with you can send an agent, sort of an AI. This is a great thing for artificial. Great. I don't want to do all this crap. I don't want to call Verizon. Have my AI agent call Verizon. They're using an AI agent. Why shouldn't I use an AI agent? Right? Sort of seems symmetrical. But so you can tell your AI shopping agent, hey, go on my Amazon account and find the best orange peeler or find the best, headphones or whatever. Here's how much I want to spend. So Amazon is suing them to stop that because Amazon does not sell products. It does sell products, of course, but that's not what they care about. Mostly what they care about is they sell you. They sell you to the people who sell products. You are the product. And when your agent goes in there and says, A, I want the best deal, B, I don't want to look at a bunch of crap, and C, I don't get sidetracked or confused or all this because I'm an AI agent, I'm not a human being. I can't be exploited in the same psychological ways that a human being can. Well, this destroys Amazon's business model, or part of it. They have many businesses with many models, but the big core of their business model is to receive advertising to show you stuff on Amazon. And Perplexity has wedged itself in there. And as I mentioned before, this is the key. You're not trying to do something new. You're trying to inject yourself into existing streams of commerce, of trade, of transactions, and extract value from it. Notice the AI browser, it's doing something helpful to you only because Amazon has made it so unhelpful that now you get an AI browser to help you do something. But of course, what Perplexity is doing, like what's Perplexity's business model? Why are they giving you all of this for free, which we'll talk about? Oh, well, because they want to package and sell you, right? This is their deal, right? This is Perplexity is not making money. They're losing money hand over fist, but they're losing money hand over fist because they want to create a whole bunch of people who use them, and then they can, of course, exploit them in the same way Amazon is. And Amazon is like, no, no, no. You don't get to do that. We get to do that. So what they're fighting about is who gets to package and sell you. That's the argument. And Amazon thinks it should be them. And Perplexity, of course, thinks it should be them. And nobody thinks it should do anything particularly helpful for you in the long run. So to me, the hilarious thing here is that Perplexity is functionally an arm of Amazon because they use AWS servers, they use AWS training. Anyways, the whole world of training large language models, et cetera, they're totally embedded in the Amazon ecosystem. So Perplexity gives a lot of money to Amazon for Amazon to sue them to say, don't do these things. So it's very likely that Perplexity will stop doing this. However, it's also very likely that someone that is not as heavily invested in Amazon ecosystem for developing their and maintaining their AI operations will just simply copy that and move on, because that seems to be like a very popular and interesting feature. And this is happening not just with Amazon, it's happening to Google, it's happening everywhere. They're losing their ability to decide what you see, and since what you see is what they sell, this is a huge, huge problem. And it'll be interesting to see where this goes, by the way. But, I could make my predictions, but it doesn't matter. So again, you're the product, you're being sold, you're being used as a revenue stream. What's the minimum cost I can have? What's the maximum I can extract from you? Always trying to work that out. Final example here, which I think is just terrifying one for me, because it just encapsulates so much of what we're up against. And this is the buy now, pay later people, which I think is another hilarious development. And what they found, I'm guessing in Europe, I don't know about the United States, in Europe, this is going to get cracked down on fairly soon. Because what they've found all over the world, but in the United States and Europe in particular, very large markets, is that they've been able to skirt credit regulation so that they can give you 3 payments, not too much credit check, and let you buy. In Europe, there's very strict anti-debt laws. And so normally you wouldn't be able to extend credit to people in this way, but Klarna and lots of other companies like this have found this loophole, and they've filled it. And so what they do is they say, hey, if you're going to buy this thing on Amazon, say for $100, why don't you do that in 3 payments of $33? It's free, no charge. And it's like, hey, great. I'd rather pay over 90 days, $33 at a time, rather than pay $100 once today. That's very seductive. We always like that kind of math for some reason, because humans, we're just hopeless at this stuff. Anyway, so how does a company that just lets you buy stuff for free make money? I mean, assuming you pay them back, they give you $100, you give them $100 back, you pay no interest and no fees. Hey, presto, you win. Where's the money? They charge the merchants, of course. So there's merchant fees involved in this. And as the back of the envelope is, it looks like they're about 3.5 to 5%. So the merchants want to do this because probably, I can't have proof of this yet, but I'm pretty sure that this encourages people to shop and that they buy more expensive things more often than they would otherwise. So that's, if you're a merchant, this is great, and you get your money up front. You're dealing with Klarna. You're not dealing with the purchaser of the item. So I win. I win on every front. This is great for me if I'm a merchant. So I'm willing to pay a small fee, 3 to 5%. Notice that it's similar to what you're paying with credit card transaction fees. So notice these fees adding up. By the way, the fees are always just built back into the price. So this is just inflation being added into the cost structure of every good. Even if you don't use the service, once the service becomes big enough, the cost of that service for the merchant has to be built into all the products. So even if you pay cash, even if you pay immediately, you're still paying for the cost of the merchant of the transaction, however that transaction is structured, even if you're not involved in those services. So again, it's inflationary, and everybody pays that. So how do they make money? They make money in 2 to 3 key ways. The first key way is many people, not all, but many people will not pay on time. They'll miss a payment because there's 3 payments. It's spread out. I forgot to pay one. Okay, what's the fee? It'll be like $7 or $8 or $10 or $12. Now, what's crazy about this is if you make a $100 purchase and you're late, that means you're late for $33 and you pay a $7 fee. That's a 30+%. Like you just paid a 30% fee. That's brutal, absolutely brutal. Even better are the people who can't pay on time, because then you go on to Klarna financing and their interest rates are up to 35%. So now they charge you a bunch of fees. Again, like considering the amount that's being extended in credit, the fees are just absolutely brutal. But then you go into their debt service, that's at 35%, up to 35% interest rate on that transactions. I mean, wow. I mean, credit cards are bad on their interest rates, but this is extortionate, let us say. So their entire business model is premised on getting people to spend more than they would who will not be able to repay the money in a normal fashion so that they can soak them for fees. This is not a sideline. This is not incidental. Otherwise, they don't make money. It's their entire plan. There is no other plan. So, but to really capture the sense of this, so by the way, right now they have about 100 million users. So those users are a commodity now. This is great. And one of the things they have is they have a collection agency that if they then, it's not labeled as Klarna, it's called something else, but it's the same company. So that if you don't pay the fees or pay the exorbitant interest rates, then they send you to their collection company. And then you run into even more trouble over there, and that's even more extortionate and more problematic. So they have this whole level, but this is their product. This is what they do. This is their business model, is to get you to spend more than you can repay and then destroy you with fees. And since most of these people are poor who are doing this, they're increasing the cost of being poor. If you just fall for it one time, like all of a sudden, oh, now you're in this debt cycle, right? It's very problematic. So, but interestingly, they're losing money hand over fist. And people go, aha, this is not a good business model. They're losing money. Yay. Don't be so fast. So if you look at Klarna's numbers, and by the way, they aren't publicly traded yet, so their numbers are kind of tricky to back figure and all this. But from what you can gather from public stuff that they have put out, because we're going to do an IPO this year, but it looks like they're doing so badly in some ways that they're not going to. They're spending about $100+ million a quarter in debt payments themselves. So, wow, that's a lot of money. And you would think, oh, that's bad. Maybe it's bad. Maybe it's not bad, because the people Klarna deals with are bankers, and bankers love revenue streams. And so if I can get $100 million in payments from Klarna, I'm happy about that. And when they have 100 million customers, I think they can pay. So this doesn't make me unhappy. This makes me happy. This makes me like, yay, like this is part of the revenue stream. And what will almost certainly happen over time is they'll be like, oh, too many people are not paying us back. The collection costs are too high. Our borrowing costs are too high. So what we're going to do, which is what they always do, this is a prediction, by the way, but it's not much of a prediction because it's like gravity. If you drop something, it's going to fall to the ground if you're not on the International Space Station, right? They'll do industry consolidation, because there's a bunch of these companies, and they'll be like, oh, we're going to buy some other companies that are also losing money on doing this really extortionate exploitation of the poor. And you're like, well, how does this work? If you're losing money and they're losing money, it's like, right. Again, what would a company who, say, a smaller version of Klarna that says 20 million users and is only losing $50 million a quarter or whatever it is. Like, why would anybody buy that? And it's like, because they're selling the users and they're selling the merchant accounts. And so now they've got a bigger scale, 120 million users, let's say in this example, and they're losing proportionally the same, maybe even less money, but also the structure of these deals. So what they'll do is they'll say, oh, we're going to buy them for, I don't know, let's say each user is worth $1,000 and you have 20 million users, so you're worth $20 billion. Yay. So we're going to buy you for debt and and stock options and cash equivalents. So what this means is, one, the key inside shareholders all get a big payout. So they get a bunch of cash and they get stock in the new entity, in the company that they're being sold into. Now, stock you just make, right? Like stock is just, it's play money. And so I can give you $10 billion worth of my stock before I go make an IPO, because these are just reserve shares, and there's laws and stuff about how you divvy those up, but you can just divvy those up. You can make more, you can do other rounds, you can do it's all very funny money. But what it means is, even though the smaller company, I think one of them is called Onyo or something like that, was also losing money and all on this program, all the people participating in it just got a big bunch of cash, not as much cash as if they had been able to go public themselves, but a pretty good payout. Probably if you're one of the key players there, you're getting, 10, 15, 20, 25 million, plus you're getting stock in the new entity. So if they go IPO, hey, presto, you get a second big payout. That's excellent. Now, if you're the bank that's backing all of this and doing all this, look, your revenue stream just got consolidated. It's in one place. It's easier to price, and you now have more market control. And so everybody knows that someday in the future, what they'll do is what always happens is they'll consolidate and consolidate and consolidate, and then they'll pick a moment and they'll go, right, now we're going to up our merchant fees to 7%. We're going to stop loaning to the people who are most likely to default on us. We're going to cut our costs by firing everybody, and we're going to increase our fees and our collection rates. Bang, bang, bang. All of a sudden, we go from being cash flow negative, losing all this money, to cash flow positive. We make our IPO, we all print out, and we've made a mountain of cash. Now, we're still carrying a mountain of debt, by the way, but that debt is collateralized by what? Why would somebody give you this debt? Oh, you've got 150, 200 million active users. You've got maybe, 5 million merchant accounts. And that's what you're selling. You're selling the exploitation of these people, knowing that you can sucker them into doing financial transactions that are not just slightly bad for them, not like a little more than they should spend, but spectacularly and catastrophically unwise. That's the business model. And we're just enmeshed in this, like at every level. And so those are examples of online shopping to financing and cell phones. I'll give you one more example, like I said, and then we'll move on to what this means as you extrapolate out of it, because that all is very like, finances and money and da-da-da. Okay, let's back away from that. A couple of years ago, Subway lost a case in Ireland because they were selling bread, which they make their sandwiches with, and the bread had a whole bunch of sugar in it. In fact, it had so much sugar in it that in Europe, you can't count it as bread. You have to count it as pastry, and pastries are not free of VAT tax. You charge VAT on pastries. You do not charge VAT on bread, because bread is basically considered a right in many European countries. I don't think that's every European country, but in many European countries. So essentially, baguettes and stuff, very much less expensive than you would think they would be, because they're kind of a protected product, but you can't put all this crap in it. You can't make it sugar. So it's only have 2% sugar by flour weight or some calculation like that, but it had 10%. So you're 5 times over the limit for sugar. And it's like, why would you do that? Well, one is you make it sweet so that people think it tastes good. And that's one step. In the United States, I don't know if they're allowed to use corn syrup in the EU, so I don't know if they were doing that, but maybe. But in the United States, it turns out corn syrup by weight is cheaper than flour, which is shocking. But of course, it's subsidized by the government, so hey presto, that's a good idea. So you want to add sugar because it's the cheaper ingredient by weight, and so that's great. And then I got looking at this, and I'm like, oh, but you don't. There's also rules in France and other European countries about how much things have to weigh, like when you sell things by weight. But notice when you buy a Subway sandwich, you're not getting a weight of bread. You're just getting a volume of bread. There you go. So if you look at what Subway does, and you look at the ingredients in their bread, it turns out they have flour, a lot of sugar, like holy cow, that's a lot of sugar, yeast, salt, normal things-ish, and then dough conditioners such as sodium stearyl lactylate, mono and diglycerides, ammonium sulfate, calcium sulfate, enzymes, ascorbic acid, azobicarbonate, potassium iodate, maltodextrin. Why? Now, it's not preservative because they say they make it fresh in the stores every day. So let's believe them that they're baking this fresh every day. I mean, it's probably a little bit of that is for preservatives because they make the dough and then they freeze it and ship it and all that. But okay, they're actually baking it fresh in the store. That's a nice touch. I like that. Wow. Why have all of this stuff in there? It's to fill the dough with air. Because what I want to do is have a minimum input for maximum minimum viable bread. What's the minimum amount of expensive ingredients like flour and corn syrup, by the way, which are not expensive ingredients, that I can spread over the largest possible area. So I can give you a big looking sandwich because it's going to be a lot of bread. And so I want it to look like you're getting a lot of bread, but it's nothing but air. Well, you put things like sodium stearyl lactylate, monodiglycerides, ammonium sulfate, calcium sulfate, enzyme, ascorbic acid, azobicarbonate, potassium iodate. I'm leading this from the list. Of course, I had to look this up. Potassium iodate, maltodextrin. You put all this shit in there that makes the bread go poof. And so what do you get? You get air. They're selling you air and chemicals, none of which are good for you. Like all that shit is like, none of this is helping you be a healthy, happy, viable human being. And so this logic of exploitation of it's crazy. And notice this is all sort of towards making a profit, but it's profit in a very different way because, again, Klarna is losing money hand over fist and they're getting loans hand over fist. Like they have, and all these other companies doing the same thing. They're also losing money and they're also getting financial backing. Why? Why is all of this money flowing into these loss-leading things? You would think it would be, they're going to make more money. It's for profit. Well, sort of maybe theoretically eventually, but it's not profit in the way you and I think of like, I make a quality product like a good sandwich. Nothing wrong with a great sandwich. Great sandwiches are lovely. But this is not how I think about it. I think about it as a product that I'm using to, extract maximum value from you. How can I advertise to you? How can I take your data from you? How can I put you in a plan that's going to get you to spend more? How can I make something that gets you to buy more of something that's unhealthy for you than you really want or need, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And because we're inundated with that, this is that creeping dystopic feel. And again, notice all of this is just interference. Klarna is not providing a service to you. It's interfering with transactions that were already happening. Amazon was sort of providing a service when they said, hey, here's a very big marketplace. We'll help you find stuff and deliver it to you. But that was a ruse. That was a Trojan horse. The way they monetize that and the way they increase their returns is by showing you advertising. All the rest of that is just to get you into the platform, to get you using it, to get you used to it. Disney sells what? They sell products. So just as another example, Netflix used to have a bunch of Disney stuff on there. Oh, hey, they're licensing it. We're getting our licensing fees. And then Disney's like, no, we're going to put all of our content onto our platform. And then you have the streaming wars, which everybody has talked about. But what they don't talk about is, hey, why didn't they just keep streaming on Netflix? And they're like, oh, do we make more money streaming ourselves? It's not clear. The numbers look dubious. All these different streaming platforms have been hemorrhaging. Some of them have been hemorrhaging money. Disney's been struggling for sure. But what they want is you. They want to capture you, because then they can go, oh, we have 40 million subscribers. And we want to have a situation where we have 40 million subscribers and we go, this Christmas, for just $2 extra, you can stream every Christmas thing for and they go, 10 million subscribers are going to do that. Great. For $2, 10 million, we just made $20 million. Just like that. Click. Or at any moment we can go, we're going to up our fees by 99 cents. We have 40 million subscribers. That's $40 million a month times, okay, we just made, $600 million more this year. Right? So that they can, it is this control. They see it as, they view the world from this outlook as streams of revenue, and that you are a product in that stream to be controlled, purchased, sold, resold. You are not a customer. You're not a consumer getting a good. You aren't participating in commerce anymore. And this is what is really, I think, one of the things that's driving people mad, because they can't quite figure it out. Because it's everywhere. How do I, but we didn't ask for it. Nobody asks for this. This is not like a voluntary program. And people go, oh, but if it's so awful and so terrible, why do people participate in it? It's like, oh, if you're in the United States, and I think other countries as well, but my experience with the U.S., you will be given incentives and advertising to use a credit card, to get a credit account, to buy a Subway sandwich 24 hours a day, 365 days a year for your whole life. And you only have to go, oh, that instant. You get on a plane and they say, hey, sign up for the American or the Delta Visa card and we'll give you 10,000 Sky Miles. So look at all this, look at all the things that already happened. So now Delta is going to enroll you in their program, Visa, the Delta Visa thing, you're going to enroll you in their program. Now you've got the Sky Miles that are all tied into that. Wow. This is the biggest win. So we're going to give you this big incentive to participate because, statistically they know you're going to generate a lot more money than that. And then they can sell you, then they can use you, then they can, exploit you in some other way. And you're like, no, I just want to get on a plane and fly, and I don't want to do any of that other stuff. Too bad. This is not allowed. And so when you're endlessly, consistently being presented with these incentives and programs, you're like, oh, you get $50 to sign up for something. If you get $50 to sign up with something, they've done the math, and it's probably likely that they're going to make more than $50 from you. So it's again, the freemium. Use this thing for free, and then slowly they'll increase the premiums. These kinds of things. Another great example from another industry is the big tractor makers, John Deere and stuff. They've just been this endless war. Because they realize selling tractors to people is okay. Selling tractors when we do the financing, that's really good because once again, we get the finance dollars. That's great. Even better is to sell tractors to people with financing that they're not allowed to fix. Because the money is really in fixing a tractor. Because if you're a farmer and your tractor breaks down, you really want it to go. Because now you are in desperate straits, and nothing better than a consumer who is desperate. And so they passed these laws and they had these codes and these rules about you as a farmer can buy a John Deere tractor for several $100,000, but you cannot touch it. And so if it breaks down, our certified service people have to come out and work on it at fees which we will set for you, and they have to use the parts that we say they use. at fees that we will set for the cost that we will set for those parts. And then, hey presto, like everything's good. Except notice that like now you're trapped. You're actually a slave to the John Deere company, because at any moment, if your tractor fails, and there is evidence that the software was not designed to be the most robust, by the way, then you just have to pay them. So at any moment, they could just actually, literally, they could program it for your tractor to stop working. They have to send out a repair person. Then they fix it and your tractor would start ringing. So there's been lawsuits and right to repair laws, and all this stuff is being fought out, still being fought out, by the way. And it's like, wow, I'm a farmer. I want to run a tractor, right? Like I didn't ask for this to be interfered with me, but if I don't have that interference, then I can't extract maximum value from you. And so you go, oh, I'm a farmer, I need a tractor, I need to expand. And they advertise, they give you these seemingly good-looking financing options and all of this that make it possible to keep going. And so you go. And if and it's just everywhere, continuously, and none of it is designed to help you. Like it's all designed to exploit you and put you into systems that are inhuman. And literally inhuman. So that's the next step here is, at all of these cases, what you want to do is remove the human element, because it turns out that while humans are capable of being awful, again, I don't want to gloss that. Unfortunately, I wish I could come up with some example of this, but like slavery existed most of the world for a long time, and it took a lot, and we still have problems with it, but at least it's illegal everywhere. So it's theoretically not supposed to happen. But so people have been willing to enslave people for human history, but also people have been willing to fight against slavery from human history. And people have tried to set rules about what you do with slaves. So in the Old Testament, they have rules about how you have to treat your slaves, right? So the humans can be incredibly inhuman, but they also have a tendency to be sort of human as well, to like try to care for people and not want to see them exploited too horribly. And it's like, great. And so to get these sorts of exploitation systems built in, you have to remove the human element. So I would imagine, maybe not, but I would imagine that you could not get hundreds of Subway bakers in hundreds of different locations to put all these nasty chemicals into the food. They would be like, hey, my friends come in and I'm like, why are we using all these chemicals? Why don't we just make good bread? Let's make good bread. That would be awesome. And then the headquarters would say, hey, you're using too much flour and your bread's too good. Like, we want air. We sell air. Stop giving them bread. Air. Sweet air is what we sell. Like, even a little bit of pushback on that. So Starbucks famously used to let their managers do the interiors and set kinds of policies and make cappuccinos and then they said, no, fuck that. We're not allowing that. Right? When they corporatized and when they scaled, they had to get rid of that because humans. But if I send the people at the Subway place a bread that's already made and just say, hey, put it in the oven for this long, they're like, okay, like that's my job. That's fine. I don't know what's in that bread. It's just bread looks like bread. I'm not a, food scientist. I didn't create this bread. And so at the same time that we're being exploited by inhuman systems, those systems are based on not allowing humans to interfere with the exploitation, if that makes sense. It's like a reverse side of this. Because the humans will step in and go, oh, yeah, that's a ripoff. Here, let me give you a refund. Like, oh, no. Like, this is not, this bread is no good. Let me make you better bread. Oh, come on. Like, the harvest needs to come in. We're going to definitely fix the tractor, right? Like, we're not going to just make that guy wait to fix the tractor. And we've got these other parts we could use. They're just as good. No, right? You have to try and, as much as possible, keep the humans away from any sort of decision making that would allow them to intervene with this, because it turns out often, not invariably, you can train them to be horrible, but the humans will actually be helpful. At least they'll be sufficiently helpful as to destroy the profit margin on a lot of this. And so this is the endless cycle that we find ourselves in. And it's everywhere, and it influences all of the systems that we interact with in an invisible and inhuman way, because these companies are sort of kind of trying to make profit, but not in a way that makes sense to us. We understand that we're being exploited, but we don't really understand that we're actually just being sold and repackaged consistently by many, many of our actions. We realize that, something that smells wrong, we don't know what it is, but we can feel it, and we're involved in it, and we're sucked into it because it just becomes ubiquitous in society. And we're just like, oh, well, yeah, of course I need to get an AI agent to shop on Amazon for me because the system is so bad that I no longer want to shop on it myself. Right? I mean, that's right. I mean, we go, oh, that's great. That's a feature. That's not a feature. That's like saying, oh, I've got an AI agent to help me fight the fire that keeps breaking out in my house. Isn't that great? And it's like, I mean, I guess it's good, but maybe how about the fire? Right? And final note on this, because people go, but if all these things are losing money and they're all crazy, how do they continue? And again, this is where the logic, I could go on, but I promise I'll stop now on this side of it, is that you don't, one of the keys here is you don't, it's called mark to market. And you're like, oh, what is something worth? Well, you know what something is worth is when you sell it, right? Which is to market to market. Mark it to market, like, give it a price in the market. And what these industries hate above all is to have anything that can be clearly marked to market. Like, this is what you don't want. So if you wonder what these high-rise buildings, you'll see them all over in every major city that often have a lot of vacant space. And you'll go, oh, well, of course, with all that vacant space, eventually they'll lower the price of that space. And it's like, oh, no. The last thing they're going to do is that. I mean, they might eventually have to, but they absolutely don't want to, because when you build a building or something like this, a big condo complex or a big business office complex, what you do is you say, I've got 1 million square feet and it's worth, $1,000 a square foot, and so it's $1 billion building. Great. We do all the math on that. Somehow we make it happen. So when I put it out to rent, if I rent that stuff for $500 a square foot, well, now I've marked my building to market at half its value. I just took an asset that was worth $1 billion, theoretically, and made it worth $500 million marked to the market. Well, this is terrible. I do not want to take a $500 million loss. That's crazy. I'm never going to do that. And so one of the things you do, hello, private equity markets, by the way, is you just never mark shit to market. You just always keep it financed behind walls that are completely opaque. So, Elon Musk buys Twitter for some absurd amount of money and to take it private. And so once it's private, nobody knows what it's worth because nobody can see how much money it's losing. It was losing money before, right? So Twitter was losing vast quantities of money. Elon Musk buys it for, I forget how many piles of billions. It doesn't matter. It's just way more than anybody thought it was worth. Takes it private, and then he sells it internally to another one of his companies. So what is it worth? Nobody knows. And so you can say it's worth whatever. I can say that my potential earnings on something are going to be worth $1 billion as long as I don't have to prove it and I can get people to go along with it. And as long as I have revenue flow to cover my debt obligations, people will probably go along with it because we all make a lot of money from the revenue flows. So generally people care a lot more about revenue flows than they do care about all these crazy other numbers. And so that's why, Klarna, companies like this, John Deere tractors, what are they interested in? Generating these massive flows of cash, interfering at every step with the commercial process in ways that create friction that I can exploit so that, hey, presto, I make big revenue, which I can then monetize in various ways, selling it off in various chunks, and none of which ever gets marked to market. And so, hey, presto, everything is good. By the way, 2008 financial collapse is just just perfect example of this. If nothing is ever actually marked to the market and nobody knows what anything is actually worth, you can run up a whole bunch, like trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars of paper value, which then goes poof if you're ever forced to market. But nobody wants to do this. And by the way, that just, again, I know I'm going too long on this side tangent. I apologize, but quantitative easing, by the way, was the Fed buying a bunch of toxic assets, the Fed being the federal government of the United States, buying a bunch of toxic assets off market so that they didn't have to get marked to the market, because they knew that if they were actually sold on the open market, it would have caused the collapse to be vastly worse. I mean, like, oh my God, if all that stuff had actually had to hit the open market and be valued, it would have been a catastrophe. I mean, it was a catastrophe anyway. It would have been a larger and different flavor of catastrophe. Now, whether that was a good idea, I mean, I think this is open to debate whether they should have done that. I don't want to debate about that. I just want to say that at the end of the day, what helped stop that collapse in value and the collapse of basically the financial system was the Fed preventing assets from being marked to an open market, because then the actual value of these goods would have been clear. But again, notice, despite all of that, you did same thing as with Klarna, right? They're losing money, but everybody involved at the top level playing this game is making a lot of money on the revenue flows. And those revenue flows come from exploiting consumers, right? Like it's an exploitation program. It's an exploitation racket. Intervene between the seller and the buyer, seduce them with some kind of offer, and then squeeze them, and then take those revenues, leverage it with debt, repeat the process, scale until you can really do that in an industrial way. Nobody cares that you lose money and lose money and lose money and lose money as long as you grow and as long as you keep scaling that revenue enough to cover your debt obligation, again, which is now $100 million a quarter. So think about that. Like, people are making $100 million a quarter on money from Klarna. Those are the friends of the people at Klarna, by the way, because think of what a great client that is. I know this is where it's counterintuitive to us. They love Klarna because they're like, oh my God, look, I loan you money. I'm making $100 million a quarter. I mean, this is spectacular. You're great. I mean, I love you. I'm going to take you to lunch every day of the week. You're wow, this is so great for me. And of course, the Klarna executives are getting very, very good pay compensation, and they have their stocks, which might be worth something at some point. So they're happy. Everybody is happy. Like, this works for everybody who matters, which is not you or me or 98% of the population. That's the downside. But it has this remarkably perverse effect on the logic of all of the markets that we interact with. So, wow. So that's a sense of the logic and the pervasiveness of the logic, from sandwiches to credit cards to cell phones to tractors to, it just doesn't matter. It's just surrounding us everywhere. Philosophically, how does one respond? And I was thinking that there's a couple of ways, and there's, if you look in the history of this, it's definitely an open question through society. So it's the French Revolution, it's the Spanish Civil War, it's the Tang Republic. It's like, all the Ming Dynasty, right? When are we in history, and how have people responded to struggles that they had? One method, and one actually moderately popular method, and this is something that Voltaire lived. So I said last time with Candide, he said, tend your own garden. But what Voltaire actually did was game his society. Voltaire made a lot of money and did all kinds of crazy things because he looked at his society and said, this is a game, and I'm going to win it for me on my terms. And so one thing to do is to look at all of this crazy system and go, how can I exploit this to my benefit? I can't change it. I'm not a revolutionary. I don't know even what a revolutionary would mean in this instance. So I'm going to just exploit it. Now, this is such a problem now, by the way, that increasingly companies are trying to, because they're trying to game the system and exploit people, so they have to create incentives. And so these incentives themselves are exploitable because they have to give you enough to make you want to sign up for a program, but not too much so that they end up losing money over time in an unsustainable way. So, by the way, Klarna is losing money in a sustainable way. It's an unsustainable losses that you try to avoid. And so, but people do this. They actively look around. And I think with AI agents, I looked this up, people are doing this. So at first I thought, oh, I'm sure people are doing it. Then I looked it up. Of course they're doing it. People are using AI agents to just shop for exploitable offers, promotions, things like on Amazon, like how can I, like if I get a 50% off coupon on something that I can get free shipping on and then resell for 70% on the market, I just made a 20% profit with no shipping costs. Great, I'm 100% going to do that. This is going to be my business. I'm going to become a market exploiter reseller, and that will be great for me. And so they start looking for this actively. And so people are making a living doing this. And with AI, I think it's going to get very interesting because it's hard to, in theory, it's hard to make AI fall for the kind of psychological, emotional tricks that humans are much more subject to. In practice, it may be that the agents and the LLMs are trained over time to not allow them to do this. So they end up not working for you. Because remember, when you use Perplexity, you're not using your AI agent, you're using their AI agent. Of course, people will begin selling AI agents. They already have. And so theoretically, you'll be able to control those more. But, welcome to the AI wars. Because if I can get somebody to intervene with me between all of these things, then I can win, in theory, and you will lose, you being the large financialization attempts. So this is certainly one approach that has been used, by the way, by many. Benjamin Franklin is another example. Benjamin Franklin was an interesting thinker, lots of great ideas, but be clear, he knew what he was doing. Like he was an operator. Voltaire, another example. Voltaire was an operator. The mathematics on gambling was worked out by a gambling mathematician and philosopher, right? Like these guys, right? So there is a long philosophical tradition of going, oh, hey, if they're going to set the game up this way, then it's for me. Another way of approaching this, which is the notion of knowledge is power, right? This is the know thyself, know thy society kind of injunction that's been around forever, which is to say, oh, like I am in this environment. I am not responsible for, I did not create it, nor do I have the means to change it, which I want to talk about at the very end here. So what I need to do is understand as well as I can how it impacts me and my family and my friends, and mitigate the negative impacts and sort of try and do what I want to do with as little problem as this can create. And so where I am locally, we have a big farmer's market. And the farmer's market is mostly, not exclusively, by the way, because it goes into creeping of financialization even in our local farmer's market, but it's mostly local farmers and local products. And you go in and you pay cash. They love cash. Most of them don't take anything but cash. And you buy beautifully produced local produce. And so this is a completely different relationship. I've actually had people visit and break down crying at the farmer's market several times, not once, and say they never want to shop in a grocery store again. And I'm like, yeah, I understand that. Because you see everybody smoking and drinking wine and chatting and having a good time with the merchants, and the food is not cheap. It's not cheap. I mean, food in Europe is way cheaper than the United States, by the way. But it's not cheap in the sense of like, wow, this is a great deal. But it is, it's a good price. But you're like just there with the person, and you know that when you give them €1, they're getting euro for euro, right? When you go to the grocery store has its overhead, and it's shipped from God knows where, and we don't know the conditions when it was produced. And it's like, oh, I know this guy. He's smoking cigarettes. He's drinking wine. He grew these tomatoes. Here's my euro. Here's my tomato. Life is great, right? We say hi, we say ça va because we see each other every week at the market. Life is grand, right? That sort of commercial interaction is utterly and completely different. It's so different that people actually break down and cry. And so that's why I said, last week, try and see if you can find these opportunities, because it's not simply a matter of, hey, this is better, this is great, support your local people, blah, 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 which is all, all these ethical concerns. Let's roll with that. It's also a matter of not being involved in these inhuman systems that actually disorient us. Not again, obviously, not by accident. They're designed to disorient you. They're designed to put you in decision positions where you don't have enough information, where you're not clear on what the outcomes are, where you don't understand the implications. This is what they're trying to do. And so you do feel disoriented often in these environments because they're disorienting. That's the point of it. And that kind of asymmetricality is just bad for the humans when you're subject to it over and over and over and over again. And so trying to find opportunities to avoid that is not simply a matter of going, oh, yes, I want to shop locally and support people. It's a matter of, my mental health and well-being may simply be dependent on this, right? It might be that simple, not even complicated. And again, this extends to if you like something obscure that you can't get at your local farmer's market, that is great, right? There's lots of great small businesses online that sell things shipped from all over the world that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise. Notice what happened with Amazon is Amazon intervened in all of those small businesses to disorient you, to distract you, to market to you, to sell you to their suppliers, and to cut out all these people. So it's not even like online commerce. I'm not saying, online commerce where you find a great store that's making, say great teas imported from fields of quality data, good. Maybe they have a couple of stores that you can go to in person if you're in the area, whatever. This is not a rail against that, because that's also great that we have access to this whole world. What a wonderful position to be in. But when you look at the amount of intervention that's used to prevent you from having that experience, it's extraordinary the lengths that people will go to. Amazon in particular, Google in its search results. This is why, again, Perplexity and stuff they're in the search wars, because it's like Google doesn't want you to contact those people. It wants you to contact the people that pay the most to get contacted, and those are not your friends, generally speaking. And so trying to reflect on and make lists of things that are good and healthy and valuable for you and how you want to interact with the world and spend your time and where all these streams are going, that is vitally important. And a last note on the revolutionary notion, because this is one that comes up all the time. Revolution is the opiate of the intellectual. I've always loved that phrase. The conceptual notion that you see in so many of the dystopias, to return to that theme from the very beginning of this, is at somewhere there is a guy, a computer, a table of bad people, a central authority, a dictator, a computer AI superbrain, that if we could just get that thing and turn it off, blow it up, assassinate it, overthrow it, we could remake the world. Everything would be good again. Roses, let's go. We're off and running. This, I think, is one of the fundamental problems that we face, because we're not in that world at all. And I think this is one why people like conspiracy theories about, there's some small cabal of the enlightened who are running everything in the world, because then it gives you the notion of, perhaps we'll be able to kill them or overthrow them or do something with them that changes things. It was the assassination of that healthcare executive a little while back is a similar model of this. It's like, if we just kill the healthcare executives, then something will change. It's like, no, absolutely not. This is a logic. It's an outlook. It's a financial intellectual conception. It's like the war on terrorism, right? You can't fight a war on terrorism because terrorism is a concept. You can only enact policies and consumer protections and financial policies that limit this logic from operating. And this logic is really, really good at preventing that from happening. I mean, if nothing else, these people, these large groups of people know exactly how to make sure that their revenue flows are not interfered with in any way. That this is going to continue and not be broken. This is going to be an ongoing structural element of the global environment that will not in any way be impacted or intervened. And so there is no locus, there is no there that one can go to. And this is one of the destabilizing and disorienting aspects of the modern world. We would love for there to be a central authority because at least it's coherent. Like I said, we don't like the exploitation of dark satanic mill where the kids go in and they get killed or maimed and they have to work 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. But we can understand it. It's very human. This diffuse, global, inhuman, exploitative logic that's built into our financial and legal and governing structures globally, where do you put your, where do you put your fingers? Who do you shoot? What do you blow up? Where do you, I think it's at in Fight Club, like they blow up all of the credit card processing buildings or something. It's just so silly. It's 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center. Like, oh, we're going to stop the stock market. No, it's so silly. I mean, it's terrible. It's a tragedy, but it's silly also because it didn't have any impact. It just got a lot of people killed. I mean, it had a lot of impacts, but it didn't stop the financial or financialization logic. That is for damn sure, because it's not located there. It's not located anywhere except perhaps the data centers, but there's a lot of those. But anyway, it's incredibly diffuse. And again, I think this is the final point, is that's part of our frustration. That's part of our disorientation, because what do you attack? Where do you go? How do you respond? How do you resist? So this is the logic. This is the pervasiveness. This is the impact. So of financialization. So now I want to move to what the cultural and intellectual and political expressions are that accompany being immersed in this kind of disorienting, inhuman logic, and how it kind of defines a lot of what we experience in the world today, emotionally and intellectually, without us being aware of it. So, Late Capitalism, thank you very much.